One of the things that drives me nuts in the media when I see something that's so misleading, and the headline I'm referring to is Chinese communists target Mark Carney. No, that was not true. That's a negative pejorative on that. What they were doing was supporting Mark Carney.
No doubt, Mike. I mean, and I was in that briefing from the site task force, and I think two things were going on. One, you have some media entities, major media entities, where the reporters either don't know or don't care the truth about the proven truth that for various reasons, China does favor the Liberal Party of Canada. And it's pretty clear to see why, because the Liberals have more friendly policies towards them. People as prominent as John McCallum, the former ambassador and
Yes.
Liberal minister, even said as much openly. So that's the story. But what happened there is CITE, in their timid steps towards actually acting on foreign interference, they wouldn't come out and say that quite clearly whatever commentary is going on in Chinese controlled intelligence operations on WeChat, TikTok, all these other entities, it favors Carney and the Liberals. There may be a little bit of negativity thrown in here and there in a sophisticated way, but yes, they were boosting him. But the site task force officials, which includes senior government officials, they wouldn't adopt that language, and they stuck to targeting, which other media took that bait and ran with it. And it was the proof that it was beneficial to Carney. It didn't tell the real story. You saw Liberal politicians tweeting that story, which just shows you how there must have been a lot of high-fiving in Liberal Party headquarters that CBC and others took the bait on that.
Well, welcome back to part 2. Now, you'll notice I started off this episode deviating a little wee bit away from the Khalistan incident. And I opened up with Sam Cooper, the legend, the one and only, greatest journalist in Canada. And this man is known across the world for exposing not only the drug cartel, but how China has infiltrated our electoral system. And it started off in his younger years looking into money laundering, and it went like money laundering to real estate to back to triad organizations. He started to see the drug world, how it was linked as well. And through following the money, it started exposing all of the realities of the political infiltration in our government. And like I state, not just our government, from the bottom up. They are in every aspect of our lives. And it's not just China. It is Iran. Now, obviously there is a war going on. Iran has infiltrated the Liberal Party as well. They have done this through certain people like, I can never say his name, I call him the algebra guy, and a few other politicians, which I'll be discussing on later, because like I had stated before, I've got close to 2 terabytes of information. I know of 21, possibly 23 people that are infiltrated. That's just through China. On that list, there are another 7 individuals that I'm trying to piece together the information on with ties to Iran. And of the 21/23-ish, there's 5 that overlap where it seems like, I shouldn't say 5 to like 10, that there's an overlap of Iranian infiltration as well. And through their politics and the things that they've implemented, how they've helped to change our immigration system, especially with a lot of the people who are part of the party, the big money behind them, the Laurentian elite and this global cabal. There's so many different tentacles that all tie into the Liberal Party and the Liberal Party's policies that are affecting Canada, and the lack of any type of oversight or attempts to actually fix it are just proof of how bad this really is. So now, rewind. The the interference part needs to be tied into, because you will realize that it was never just Trudeau. It was never just Governor Turd. It was the Liberal Party as a whole. And this goes right into the Hogue inquiry, how she actually hid and didn't ask the right questions or the right people in order to hide. So obviously she herself and the people within that council, or whatever you want to call it, that were working with her in order to do this fake inquiry, were all in cahoots and knew what was going on. So I'm gonna dabble a little wee bit on this, and then I'm gonna weave right back into the Khalistan and where we are today. And I'm gonna kind of, like I said, it'll all be kind of done in block pieces. I hope I put it together well enough for the entire kind of package. Now, obviously, I can't give you the whole thing. I can't give you, the 3/4 of a terabyte I have just on this type of a file, which deals with the Iran, China, Khalistan, ISIS, the Muslim Brotherhood. This is why you'll notice I critique hard on anybody, especially since I knew people who, I had 2 really close friends that I lost, Palestinians. They went back to save their family. And if you're a new subscriber, a new viewer, I urge you, as always, and I urge everybody, please go through all of my videos. You will find some incredible information. There's so many different part and parcels that are all intertwined, and I can't do it in like a 1 hour or even a 50-part series. Theoretically, almost every single clip I do, every episode, there is a large portion of what I'm reporting on, even though I may not say it at the time while I'm reporting on it, that all has ties to all of this corruption, which all leads back to the Liberal Party. And they're either infiltration, incompetence, ignorance, ties to like I said, this new Liberal Party has become the epitome of all the evil, of all of the just complete destruction of our society for a reason. They will do, fascists, socialists, communists will do anything to achieve and hold power and wealth. I'm going to go back in time a little wee bit, and I'm going to show you a clip. And I'm going to pause it, and I'm going to read pieces off that they're showing in the back, which comes from the actual document. The document itself, even though it exposes a lot of what it is it's the foreign interference inquiry. And it's their final kind of, this is the report they put out. And I'm going to post, I did the research for you. I've got the link. It will be in the description below. So you can actually go over. It's a really lengthy report. You have to dig really hard to find and kind of decipher how they worded things. There were some truths that they had to put in the report. But through the rest of the report, which I like to, my famous words are verbal diarrhea. In this part, it's literal diarrhea, because it's a written document, where they kind of cover it up in order to, it's just there's nothing to see here, people. When in actual effect, it was one of the largest cover-ups that we've seen. And if they would have done their job correctly, not only would the Liberal Party not be in power, we could have cleaned up and seen people charged at the highest levels, because it would have started to open the doors to transparency and rule of law, which is completely gone in Canada. Now, let's get on this, and this is another Indian news outlet.
Devgaji, thanks for having me on your show. Look, one thing is very clear. Like Joyita ji and Ambassador Saab have spoken, the first and important thing is today China's lies are exposed. I have been talking on NewsX. It's not only Chinese influence, but there are around, it's believed to 10 or 19. That's somewhere the number is, that is on the social media. There are the people who have been
Now, they're saying 4 individuals. Okay, and now it's 4 individuals have been named. And again, previous episodes, I exposed this. I also exposed a few more names. And this was, of course, Sam Cooper that broke the story. It would never have even come to fruition if it wasn't for Sam Cooper. The one, the only, the legendary. So I just wanted to correct what you're seeing on the screen. 4 were named. One was a conservative senator. One was a liberal senator. The other 2 were liberal MPs. Later on, Sam, and during a press conference, which I'm just going to keep saying, previous episodes, exposed another 2 liberal MPs. So we'll roll with this. And like I said, bear with me. I'm going to pause it because I'm going to do some reading because they're posting perfect little line quotes out of the Foreign Inquiry review.
actually paid money from the Chinese embassy in Canada. They were literally paid cash to support Trudeau's government. Now, he always knew the Chinese angle. Look, when he first accused India, he put delegations of India, he said, I have credible intelligence. Then when he goes in front of the committee, he says, no, I got this intelligence from Five Eyes, and possibly because on that, we decided to go ahead with that. And yesterday there was one interesting video out which of the Commissioner of CC, Canadian Mounted Police, Royal Canadian Mounted Police, where the Commissioner says, till date, we have no clue, we have no credible evidence of Indian government or the agents of Indian governments involved in the Niger case.
Now, during this inquiry, what they did is they did the typical fetch the ball. This is what mainstream propaganda does. This is their job. This is how the hammer of propaganda works. So liberal MPs, even Privy Council, all wastes of skin, all bought and paid for, all working against Canada's best interest. This inquiry was supposed to be about China. What do the Liberal Party and the media do? Are you ready? Are you ready? Fetch the ball. It's now about India. Taking the focus away from what this entire inquiry was supposed to be about, changing the entire directive onto focusing something totally different because an election's coming up, and they got to make sure people don't see the truth. It gave this inquiry the perfect ability to just sidestep, let China go through, let Iran go through, let Russia go through, and deal with India. Why? Because the mass amounts of immigration that are coming in are coming through extreme organizations who have infiltrated all the way up to the schools and are bringing in people on false premises that they're going to be in school, temporary foreign workers, temporary students, plus the regular immigration of people involved in the extremist ideologies of not just the Khalistan, but also from Iran. The extreme ideological, hardcore, genocidal lunatics. The ones that are out there picketing the streets, calling themselves pro-Palestinians, when in actual effect, like myself, I know true Palestinians. I lost a couple true Palestinians to the real people that are protesting, which is pro-Hamas. They're flooding the country with these complete extreme ideologies who use drugs, guns, harm, extortion, ending life, whatever it takes in order to make profit in order to spread fear, hate, and division for their own ideology. So we've got a multitude of factions. Now today, obviously, I'm dealing with the Khalistan part. But you got to remember, this inquiry, ready? Fetch the ball. So this is why I rewound time back to this particular part. You need to understand what India has already and has been for quite some time pointing out. Because they're affected on both ends. Pakistan has an infiltration of this Muslim Brotherhood. They're funded by China. China uses all of these organizations to their benefit. This is why China buys all their oil, a majority of it, and who do they supply? I mean, what oil do they buy? Iranian oil. They use it to help bolster and fund this evil because it is going out around the world spreading chaos. And they do so using immigration systems, political interference, in order to help get these complete extremists and tea people into the countries like ours, democracies, that they want to destroy from within. This is the large picture. You can't focus through a pinhole and expect to see exactly what's going on. Now, we'll get going, and like I said, I'm just going to keep pausing it through this because I want to read certain points off to you.
Now the anchor is asking him, then why were you talking about this? He said, look, when we do a case, some evidence might come up, something might come up, but as on date, we have nothing. We have nothing with us which can relate Indian government with the Niger.
So, here's a quote out of the report. Interference by the People's Republic of China and other countries in the federal elections of 2019 and 2021, including whether large systematic negligence was at play.
Case, then obviously when you
Some parliamentarians and commentators called for a public inquiry.
This means when his Chinese bluff and his Chinese connections were getting exposed, he didn't know what
the
to
most
do.
significant perpetrators of foreign interference in Canada were the People's Republic of China, the Russian Federation with the PRC, which is China, representing the greatest foreign interference threat. Fetch the ball. Instead, the whole inquiry ended up being focused on India, and all the allegations were proven false. There's still no evidence.
The best thing to do was let's start blaming the India, let's start blaming the Indian government, and let's start doing what it is doing. Look, we have been always talking...
Most notably, the PRC remained the largest foreign interference threat to Canada, including its democratic institutions and processes.
That the real estate in Canada is controlled by Chinese. The China towns inside have flesh trade, they have prostitution, they have gambling, they have...
PRC had established a series of overseas police stations in countries around the world, including Canada. Now, if you listen very carefully to what he is saying exactly what Sam Cooper has been talking about and what I've been talking about on previous episodes, and we're going to dabble a little wee bit on that here today. They're involved in everything. And now when I name off certain things here, think what politicians and what parties brought in and legalized these systems. Okay, so who is the major cause and major purchaser of real estate? Well, take a look at our housing minister. He just got nailed. He's got how many millions of dollars involved in buying up real estate and trying to hide it? Trudeau is involved in a huge corporation that buys up real estate. We have the casinos, which the Chinese have pretty much taken full control over. Who has licensed gambling, restricted and only given it to certain people? This would be Dougie Ford, right? Like, if you just think very carefully, in each province, you're going to find there'll be somebody somewhere, especially in BC, Ontario, Quebec, these larger, heavily populated provinces The politicians who were bringing these in, why is it that China ended up having full control and using it? Let's not forget about cannabis. Who's all invested in cannabis? Well, when you've got a guy who is supposed to be the chief of police who then ends up running for politics, and you find out that the guy who was trying to film Dougie's brother, Rob, smoking the marijuana, had shares in marijuana companies before they were legal. And then, not just him, there were other politicians. Of course, they didn't know about it, but for some reason the people who were actually investing their money for them were investing in these policies before they were put in. Then they ended up legalizing it. These people end up becoming filthy rich, and who ends up becoming the largest distributor and takes over pretty much, I think they're at 75 or 80% of all the cannabis growing operations are owned and ran by, through the CCP. They're now the largest drug, marijuana distributors on the planet, people. See what I mean? You can't look through a pinhole. Everything has to come, you got to kind of just open your eyes and look right around. And like I said, I'm only dealing with the Khalistan, so I'm just going to keep letting this guy go. But I just want to keep on kind of throwing out the hook and reeling in all of these little things that nobody's talking about. They were little news blips here and there, but mainstream, ooh, don't say that. Don't talk about that. Let's keep going.
It's a den of spies, everything. It's like it's a...
PRC has established a series of overseas police stations in countries around the world, including Canada. By the way, we still have them.
Like a mini China within Canada, they're not bothered about. Now all the Pakistani...
The PRC established these stations without Canada's permission and in contravention to the Foreign Missions and International Organizations Act.
So-called colonels and generals who make money are living in Canada. They again live in those ghettos and their colonies. So there are
CSIS assessed that the key purposes of these stations were to collect intelligence and monitor former PRC residents living in Canada as part of the PRC's broader transnational anti-corruption, repression, and repatriation campaign. PCO similarly assessed that the stations represented the institutionalization and intensification of the PRC pre-existing extraterritorial law enforcement efforts, which it assessed were likely to continue, albeit with more emphasis on covert tactics. It's all in the fine print.
colonies, the Canadian colonies are all kind of these Chinese colonies are all kind of these colonies where people are living in ghettos and trying to control the thing.
Online influence and information operations were some of the more difficult tactics for Canadian intelligence agencies to link to the PRC. Now, again, previous episodes, I bombshelled this hardcore because a committee even came out during the elections, which we're going to get on here a little bit later, saying how they attacked Carney, when it was in fact the exact opposite. They were wanting Carney to get put in, which was a story I broke with a few others, thanks to Sam Cooper, who theoretically he broke the story. He broke it. But I had other information that I kind of added to it, and I was still, right after Sam, one of the first, second, or third people who were putting this out there. And between all of us, we all had little bits of information that I checked on the other people as well, and it helped my files. I helped their files, and again allows us to build and start joining other pieces. That whole Paul Chang, that was huge. The amount of evidence that came out between the 2 or 3 reporters, like myself, I don't call myself a reporter, I'm a journalist of some sort because I do investigative journalism. We all helped each other out because we were finding even more information, which allowed us to join other links that we were like, oh, now that goes to here, and that helps us here.
Pakistani Baloch activists get murdered, nobody's able to find anybody.
Observed online and media activities aimed at discouraging Canadians, particularly of Chinese heritage, from supporting the Conservative Party of Canada. Mainstream sure in heck didn't talk about this after the report came out, did they? It was all India. You ready? Are you ready? Get the ball.
One Singh is executed. Nobody is able to find anybody. And out of all the crime which is increasing in Canada and the economy is growing at 1.2%, the only
The PRC also relies on a network of proxies, including prominent business people and community leaders in major urban centers like Greater Vancouver, Greater Toronto, and the PRC proxy considered by the security and intelligence community to be the most egregious case of foreign interference.
only thing which was his Canadian Royal Mounted Police is interested in how our possible development has some alleged links with some.
The PRC employs a comprehensive approach to targeting and leveraging virtually all aspects of Canada's democratic processes and institutions to advance its strategic interests.
But he's killing. And even after that, I want to ask a question: why they are not extraditing Harshdallah?
Now,
Why you are keeping those?
Harshdallah is a T man. Arrest. For years, India has been trying to get extradition on not one, on not 10, on more than 20 known terrorists that are here in Canada. The number is now closer to 60. They are getting in the country. We're allowing them to stay. They are using our own system against us, especially since the party in power is allowing it to happen through non-vetting in the immigration, purposely, knowingly, and wittingly allowing and helping them through government grants, through institutions like our universities, and work programs to bring them in as a cover. Most of them don't go to school. Most of them don't end up going to work. They end up running drugs, making drugs, running guns, being part of the trafficking, extortion. This is huge. India knows what's going on. The PRC state-directed cyber group started targeting 8 members of parliament and 1 senator in early 2021. Now, this is what the report put out. It started way before that. I have proof on it. I've actually discussed it on previous episodes, and so has Sam Cooper. I urge you to watch and definitely get the Bureau, pay for the subscription. It is so worth it. The information that man puts out is it's just unbelievable.
Those 29 extradited people in Canada who have been asking for last 10 years. And if these people are causing violence within your land,
the organization primarily responsible for strengthening the PRC's influence and interests abroad is the United Front Workers Department.
that becomes your problem. And today, after the Chinese connection, it is very, very clear that the government
The
of Canada...
CCP is assessed to have spent over 2.6 billion, that's American dollars, by the way, on United Front work in 2019.
Under Justin is completely compromised. They are puppets of China. They work on the whims and fancies of China. And the best thing China is trying them to do...
The UFWD has established community organizations to facilitate influence operations against specific members of parliament and infiltrated existing community associations to reorientate them towards supporting CCP policies and narratives.
is to defame and demean India in the international forums, try to orchestrate some stories, violent, the connection, the money, the influence.
Interference by the People's Republic of China and other countries in the federal elections of 2019 and 2021 include whether larger systematic negligence was at play. Some parliamentarians and commentators called for a public inquiry. Of course they did. And that, again, all came from Sam Cooper.
The favors which have been exposed, which have been exchanged, are not to be spoken about. Like the senator who was exposed.
The most significant perpetrators of foreign interference in Canada were definitely the People's Republic of China.
Our son was trying to put allegations on us, so-called exposers. Now the same senator is in bed with China. What does that tell you? That tells you how much compromised the system is, what is the amount of rot which is in the system, and how much Canada has been lying. And Canada has been quoting Five Eyes, which is again a bluff. Canada has been quoting American intelligence, is again a bluff. And the whole of the Western world should know how much unreliable is China's government, is Canada's government under Justin, and how much compromise this man is, because he's trying to build the whole West and trying to gang against India. So what he's doing on the behest of China, he's trying to get all Five Eyes and all of the Western, gang or the group, whatever you want to call it. You want to mobilize them, and he wants them to gang against, India. So on the Chinese behest, he's acting as their agent and trying to get the whole of the West against India. So the whole of the West should try to take a note of it, especially the Five Eyes. Because he has been always quoting Five Eyes, Five Eyes, Five Eyes. Do Five Eyes people know his links with China? Do they know how much is the money that Canadian MPs and senators were paid? Do they know what is the money Jagmeet Singh is getting paid? Do they know what is the influence China has in there? And after these revelations, which are done, but you rightly said, is done by a Canadian journalist on Canadian soil, it's not done by us. Now after that, will they come and apologize to us? That is the minimum they should do. And now, does this government have any right to be in the office? That is for the people of Canada to determine. And let me.
Now, he nailed it. He absolutely nailed it. Again, previous episodes when I actually did the whole Khalistan thing, in that series, even Jagmeet Singh is compromised. I mean, the guy had a picture of the architect of the flight, the India flight that was bombed. And took how many lives behind him. He saluted him. He put him on a pedestal. A Khalistan extremist, a Khalistan terrorist. He used those same people in order to ascertain power and win in an election. So not only is the Liberal Party completely compromised through China using this extremist organization, as well as extremist Iranians, the offshot, complete lunatic Muslim world, where a real Muslim doesn't. That's not, and people get just. It's not. You can't say it's Muslims. It's not. Majority of them are really good people. I've got a lot of good Muslim friends. They're completely abhorred by what's going on, because they're seeing the proxy that Iran is using through these hate-filled extremists. India sees it on both ends. Now we're caught in the middle because of our government. Because Jagmeet, just because he's gone, doesn't mean that it's still not there. I have no idea. I'll have to look into more on what's left of this NDP. All I know is Jagmeet was in both feet all the way up to his neck. Just like Justin, just like 3/4 of the Liberal Party. You tie that with the Chinese interference in behind it and all of the money. This is all, man, this is huge. This is why all of this Khalistan takeover in the drugs and it's all being funneled. We are now the proxy. We are being used by China, by Iran, in order to not only destroy our nation, but to instigate and a place for all of this nastiness to fester and launch itself from here outside of our country. And it starts with a lot of the money they're making off of all of these said drugs, guns, trafficking. The proceeds of it are all being funneled into these T organizations and sent abroad. I'm warning people now, I foresee something huge happening. In fact, when that plane went down in India, I was at the edge of my seat going, uh-oh, has it already started? Is Canada going to be implicated in this? Was that another Khalistan attack? It's going to happen. And we're going to tie this into the G7 with Modi. But first, let's just dabble on what India has been doing.
Shiv, you're spot on. Strong action taken by Government of India and announcing that more action would be taken. As Kamaljeet has very rightly reported, one of the faces of this Khalistani terror, both in the United States of America and in Canada, is Gurpatwant Singh Pannu. And when his properties get confiscated, when his accounts, when details, the government starts looking at all those financial links of how money is coming into India, how money is being funneled into India, how it's all about extortion, gangs operating.
Now the guy that you're seeing on the bottom right hand side of the screen, That man is one of the heads of the Khalistan movement.
In the name of Khalistan. So only the shop name is Khalistan. The merchandise inside, more than terror, is gangsters and extortion and money-making racket. All of that gradually coming to the fore. That is why the true faces of those Khalistanis are getting exposed in Canada. And this is just the beginning shift. The moment those faces are then identified and passports and OCI cards and all those links start getting cancelled, then they will realize how these people, even in Canada, in case there's a real investigation, they will figure out how they're involved in human trafficking, extortion, and mafia-like hits, even in Canada, Shiv.
And you know, Kamaljit's unbelievably disturbing report about the manipulation of innocent Punjabi youth by some of these Khalistani groups is going to come up in a short while from now. I'm going to play that full report by Kamaljit for you in a moment. But Kamal, you know, between...
Now, do you see how they already know what's going on? This is the CCP using the Khalistanis within Canada. Like I said, selling them drugs, like almost giving them away because it helps the CCP. They want chaos. They want our society to self-destruct. They want our systems to implode. Now, who else is helping them do that? Why is housing unaffordable? Why is our medical system crumbling? Why are schools crumbling? Why are the teachers, majority of them, especially in the universities and colleges, so left-leaning? Why are Jews fleeing our country? All of this is because of the policies of immigration. Who's responsible for immigration? Who's the reason it's as high as it is and is breaking records on a monthly basis? Liberal Party, Liberal Party, Liberal Party, Liberal Party, Liberal Party, as I showed in part 1 when I showed the graph of the immigration. And we're set to blow the doors off of those numbers. We're already almost tied to what we let in 2023. And we're not even halfway done the year. They're all working together, people. Carney is lipstick on a pig. He's the same thing, except for he's going to force his agenda through, which is going to lubricate all of our tax dollars right through the system into the hands of all of his friends, himself, and his corporations. They don't care. They don't care about you. Let's move on to a little clip from Sam Cooper, the one, the only, the legendary.
As I found out year by year, egregiously, not only in real estate and casinos, but year by year it becomes clear corporate structures. I'm asserting law offices, banking. We now know the TD banking scandal that connects, as I've revealed, to Chinese triad, as my US friends say, command and control in Toronto and Vancouver. So it's just by 2023, I would say, talking to various experts in Canada and the United States, I've connected that trilogy or triumvirate of Iran, Mexico, and China at the peak of Canadian organized crime. And it does connect to state, certainly hostile state activity with Iran and China. And in Mexico, I would say almost a state-like entity, a takeover state entity that is the cartels, and in their aggressive and coercive way have become almost singular with the Mexican government in a lot of areas.
Yeah, this is really fascinating. And in Ontario, I know this from my time in the Solicitor General's office. You know, you look historically at the major groups that are appearing, and some who are still in the prisons there. It's Hell's Angels and domestic groups, but the profile and entities involved has shifted dramatically in a relatively short period of time, just in the past decade.
Correct. Let's fast forward it a little wee bit.
On the same token, as someone that understands investigation and intelligence, having never been officially in those fields myself, but dealing with a lot of good people, you would not want to say we've seized X amount in South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Maine, New York from Chai Lapsey's Markham, Ontario network. And we know Chai Lapsey and Markham is involved, and his network meets constantly with Justin Trudeau's officials. No, I'm saying I know the political piece and how sensitive it is. But there's holdbacks. Certainly, I would think, I would lean towards they're not going to give away their intelligence of where those seizures are. But I'll give you an example. Again, Donald Im from the DEA reached out to me, said, Sam, at the Bureau, you're nailing stories that are in the classified realm and we can't say openly. But let me tell you that the DEA, when that Danforth shooting in 2018 occurred, and there was a 40-kilogram carfentanil seizure linked to the shooter, that is, his family member, was associated to 40 kilograms in Pickering. The DEA believed that that was a Pakistani threat network, that there were potential terror links, that China had supplied the precursors, bringing together potentially Chinese and Pakistani threat networks. So again, look at the political convergence and the crime network convergence. The DEA asked the RCMP, can we have a couple grams of that seizure? We have a seizure of carfentanil from Quebec in Atlanta. We would like to see if they match up. And the RCMP shut them down. And that just leaves the U.S., that leaves people like Kash Patel, people in the White House, I'm sure, scratching their head. I was told that might have even come up in the first meeting in Washington between Prime Minister Carney and Trump and Vance. So it's a long answer to say, you're right, Canadians are right to keep pressing for, give us more evidence. But I'm saying, I'm sorry, people, columnists at the Globe and Mail or talk show hosts at the CBC that have never written on fentanyl in their lives, to say that there's not a big problem here and this is purely political, I know they're wrong. And it's disrespectful, in a way, to go out there when you got no basis to your reporting and assert that you know everything in the world, when someone like me, now internationally best-selling author on this topic, I'm saying different. So I'm telling Canadians, listen to me. I don't care if I don't work for, a mainstream outlet anymore. I'm the leader on this.
Now, what he was getting to is, it started off through the conversation that they were discussing, and of course I had to cut most of it out for time. But why the Trump administration hasn't let loose more information about exactly how much drugs are coming out. And one of the cases, and of course Sam Cooper he's renowned for this. People from the alphabet squads in the States call him. Not only does he have an open dialect, he can communicate with them at will because the respect is so high between them. They actually call him. So he's talking about the Danforth. Now, the Danforth, if those of you who forget, was the guy who went loose on Danforth Avenue with a gun and was shooting people. And the media was all like, oh, no, this isn't a T thing. No, this isn't all part of it. Okay, well, this all kind of falls back into what I was saying. Now, here's the ties, okay? They were afraid the man's name and the links to where he was and where his family came from showed up in the States. They were actually worried if they just dodged another 9/11. So it responded to revelations appearing in a July 27, 2018 CBC News report. Below is a sentence from the report describing the haul taken from the Danforth shooter's brother's home. Durham Region Police later obtained a search warrant and found 33 firearms, ammunition, and more than 40 kilograms of the potentially lethal drug carfentanil. Typically, when journalists refer to multiple kilograms of narcotic, say 5 kilos of heroin at the airport, they're referring to a narcotic in its pure form unless otherwise specified. The Guardian article on the same seizure seems to confirm the purity of the substance in this sentence. So, they stumbled upon, because the one brother lost his noodles, went on this spree, it actually exposed a cell in Canada. The coppers down south said, hey, This ties into a huge case that we're dealing with because they're constantly arresting T people, which the majority of the tier T people that go into the States come from Canada, and they're trying to put these pieces together. I post all the links, so you'll be able to read this whole article. You'll be able to read it all. I even post right in here. This is just the Wikipedia, and there's way better articles. I just did this because of the ease of the reading and how simple it was for anybody to kind of go through here and just kind of read this out, okay? So it goes over the whole thing. There's a lot of misinformation in here. But at least it does state Hussein was born to parents of Pakistani origin, according to people who knew the family. In a public statement, Hussein's parents said that he was blah, 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 blah. He says he was psychotic and all the rest of it. Okay. Pakistani origin. The links were not just to ISIL. The links were also to Khalistan. Moving on. Are you seeing this? This is all buried. This is stuff media should have been putting out, but they refuse to talk about because they are the propaganda arm of the Liberal Party. This is new. Now we're up to date. This is the worry that I saw coming. I believe this is the reason that Trump had the largest military escort he's ever taken, or any president has ever taken, out of country, especially to a G7 nation, which I showed you on a previous episode. And why he left Canada early, because he couldn't even trust that any of his communications wouldn't be infiltrated. Think of that, people. Welcome to Canada, or is it Chinada?
Prime Minister Modi's trip is not over. Cyprus was just the first stop. Like we said, as we speak, he's heading to Canada, to Calgary for the G7 summit. The venue itself is a story here. As you know, ties between India and Canada are near rock bottom. Initial reports said Ottawa would not even invite Prime Minister Modi, but eventually they did. The Indian Prime Minister will be in Canada on Monday and Tuesday. The question is, could this lead to a reset? Well, the pictures are not encouraging. Khalistanis are camping in Calgary to protest Prime Minister Modi. They are being led by the SFJ, the Sikhs for Justice, the same group led by Gurpatwant Singh Pannu. He recently posted a video message. Pannu is calling for Khalistanis to ambush the Indian Prime Minister. Listen to this.
Listen carefully.
Thank Mark Carney, more of a businessman than a Canadian Prime Minister upholding Canadian values, for giving pro-Khalistan Sikhs a historic opportunity. An opportunity to ambush Modi's politics right in front of G7 nations during G7 from June 16th to June 17th. Sikhs for Justice is going to launch 48 hours ambush Modi politics from landing to takeoff.
The Khalistanis are doing it. They have taken out massive rallies. They're carrying effigies of Prime Minister Modi in prison clothes. Some of them openly say they want to kill Modi's politics. Yet what is Canada doing? Well, nothing so far. They have not denied permission for these rallies, nor have they broken up the protests. And frankly, this is looking ominous. Calgary already has a Khalistan streak. Last year, SFJ held a referendum in this city. Almost 50,000 people turned up to vote. But tomorrow they won't be alone. The Indian diaspora tends to mobilize when the Prime Minister travels. They welcome Prime Minister Modi at airports. They greet him at hotels. They line up along the road. So what happens if they come face to face with these Khalistanis? I hope Canadian cops have thought about it.
Now, do you understand why I was feeling when that plane went down? I watch a lot of news from around the world. India, especially with what's going on in Canada, I pay particular interest to. They understand the threat of what Canada is. They're seeing it from both angles. They're seeing it from the extreme psychotic, Hamas, Muslim Brotherhood, ISIL, Iranian aspect. They're also seeing it through the exact same extreme Khalistani, all of which is funded by China, who is the major thorn in India. And it used to be a thorn in Canada until, for some reason, our new Liberal Party just, they admire the basic dictatorship. Nothing's changed. It's the same party, people. I'm going to fast forward it a little wee bit here.
India should be wary of two things. Number one, rushing into a reset. New Delhi should push for concrete action against Khalistanis, not cosmetic concessions, because the future is uncertain. In the next election, Carney may lose his majority. He may have to turn to the NDP, just like Justin Trudeau did. Will he then appease Khalistanis too? And that's why we need concrete action. Personal promises and resets mean nothing. And secondly, we must be wary of Khalistani provocations. They clearly won't like a reset, so expect them to try and derail it. I know there will be bigger things to discuss at the G7, but this is shaping up to be a crucial subplot.
First post now
So
available.
this is, like I said, first frame of mind when it comes to India. Now, I have no idea what Modi and them talked about, but I do know that in later interview, a presser, he was worked on this.
In your meeting with Prime Minister Modi, I wanted to ask you, what did you say to him about the murder of Canadian Sikh activist Hardeep Singh Nijjar?
We have had a discussion, the Prime Minister and I, about the importance of having the law enforcement to law enforcement dialogue, which is not just dialogue, cooperation directly.
Now, how can he even... Just listen to this verbal diarrhea. There's hate speech. Khalistanis could have been charged and pulled off the streets. You cannot call for the removal of somebody's life. You cannot call out for the extinction of a certain people. We have two parties, two entities doing this in Canada on a huge scale. You have the hardcore left Hezbollah, Hamas, Iranian side, and you have the hardcore Khalistani side. Do you see where all this is going? Let's just let him finish off his verbal diarrhea.
The importance of addressing transnational repression, as I noted, including when we met, and obviously there is a judicial process that's underway, and I need to be careful about further commentary. En français, nous avons eu une discussion en ce qui concerne la coopération.
I'll fast forward it past the French. He tries to get an answer. He asks, after he does his whole French thing, he tries it again.
Just want to be clear, though. Yes or no, did you bring up the murder?
I refer to my previous answer.
What?
Hi, Mr. Carney, JP.
So no answer. There's no proof. Nothing has ever been proven. Let's go back in time.
Well, you raise an interesting point, Naviga, and I think that part of the answer has to be on Monday when Mr. Trudeau came out with this in the House of Commons. It was the day back. The party wasn't doing very well. And when you let this sort of massive information out...
Do you notice the person on the right-hand side of the screen? Yes. Prominent figure. For all the wrong reasons.
There, it sucks all the air away from other issues that were going to be on the table as he reintegrated the House of Commons. So I think that the point that you raised with regard to evidence is one that one of the other political leaders, which I am not anymore, I'm an observer, I'm a commentator, I give my opinions on things, but one of the leaders who is still member of the House of Commons, Mr. Poilievre, who's the leader of the opposition and who polls show his way ahead of us right now, he asked a very simple question. He says, okay, this is such an important allegation that you've made. Have you got any evidence for it? Can you prove any part of it? And so far, there hasn't been any. And it's worth pointing out, Naviga, that leaders of the opposition by tradition are members of what we call the King's Privy Council for Canada. So when I was the leader of the opposition, even though I had not been a minister, because all ministers are members of the Privy Council, like Mr. Poilievre was, but I had to be made a member of the Privy Council, and so that was so what the Prime Minister I was facing, Stephen Harper, would be able to share secrets of state, and I would be bound by the secret of the Privy Council. And indeed, that's what could have happened here. If Mr. Trudeau has that evidence, he can and should be sharing it. When these big issues happen on the world stage, you can think back to events of history. Governments come forward and say, we have evidence of this grave act, and here it is. So this was just laid out there, and already the next day, Mr. Trudeau seemed to be trying to put the cover back on the pot and lowering the temperature, but he had already said what he had said. And I'm sure that he wouldn't have said it unless our security services gave him some indication, but the Canadian voting public has none of that right now. And today, India has announced, as you're aware, that they're going to be putting an end to visas to Canada. So things are...
So, nothing's changed. There's still no proof, no evidence. CSIS is in shambles. The RCMP is in shambles. The police are running around with their like chickens with their heads cut off. And through these wiretaps, what do you think they're finding out? When you're dealing in armored vehicles, people, records amount of drugs, guns, whose fault is it? It's the Liberal Party and their involvement hereof. It's all right there. All the links. We're seeing them take over the entire black market of Canada. This is not a fluke or a coincidence. This is a setup from China using the Liberal Party and their idealism for greed and power to push through their own fascist ideology. Welcome to China. Let's go a little bit ahead here in this presser that happened today. By the way, this was all today, this one.
Question?
Yeah.
Good evening, Prime Minister. My name is Gaurav Sawant. I work for India Today in Delhi. Your meeting with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, how would you describe that? And what are concrete steps that you and the Prime Minister of India discussed to take this relationship forward, that it reaches its true potential, sir?
Well, I think the several things, if I may say. I would say the meeting, the fact of the meeting. Let me say a few things. First, just in terms of Prime Minister Modi's attendance at the G7. Prime Minister Modi has attended every G7 since 2018. That is a reflection of the size of the Indian economy, the dynamism of the Indian economy, Indian technology, the leadership position India plays in a host of venues from G20 and beyond. So as chair of the G7, hosting the Prime Minister in that context is entirely natural, entirely consistent. I fully expect the Prime Minister of India will be in attendance at the G7 next year, for example, in France. First thing. Secondly, in terms of the bilateral relationship, which is your question, I think the meeting today was important, but I would describe it as foundational, as a necessary first step, an exchange of views, frank, open exchange of views around law enforcement, transnational repression as two examples, an agreement to provide the necessary foundations to begin to rebuild a relationship based on mutual respect, sovereignty, trust. And that begins with what was agreed, you asked for concrete, which is that we will move to appoint high commissioners again. And let me just finish by putting that in context, which is there are very deep ties of people and businesses between Canada and India. It's well known. It's part of your point about where the relationship could go.
Now, he just goes on with this verbal diarrhea, okay? Now, to end off this episode, and I hope I enlightened everybody out there, this is all happening in real time. All the links are there to join all of this together. It's all incredibly obvious, and for some reason, nobody's talking about it. I'm the only one. They're either pointing out that we've got Khalistanis, blah, 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 over here, or we've got Iranian, blah, blah, over here, or we got China over here, when we already know all the evidence is there. Previous episodes, follow Sam Cooper and the Bureau. This is all known. What you're seeing is all of this starting to come to a head. These are all linked back to China. The Liberal Party, Khalistan, Iranian leftist nutbar thinking, Hezbollah, Hamas, all of them. They're feeding Canada all of this. This is done by design. Now, this clip I saved for the end because this guy is one of the largest podcasters on the planet. He's part Canadian and part Indian. He's got, I'm talking, millions upon millions of subscribers and viewers, in especially in India, but lots here in Canada as well. He's at the G7 after meeting Carney and all and seeing everything that's going on. Here's the reality. Here is the truth laid down, and you couldn't get any clearer than this. It's just, well, here it is.
Can you explain it in this way? And that's where we are at on the Khalistan issue.
We can't just term the Canadian government to be as naive as to what exactly is happening on their soil for decades together.
Have you seen Canada? They got a Nazi in the parliament. This is not a serious. This is not a serious country. I mean, I don't know how else to say this. They had Jazzy B, the Khalistani, in the BC legislature. Inderjeet Mogga came just a few days ago. So this is Canada. Weird things happen. So I mean, I don't know how else to answer. I know it sounds crazy what I'm saying, but it is Canada. This is. So look at it. I want to give this as an example, maybe as a parting message. So in an Indian relationship, there is a bada bhai and a chota bhai. Bada bhai is very popular. You know, he gets all the good things in life, and the chota bhai is sitting in the corner. And then the chota bhai breaks a glass. Ki koi meri sune. So Canada is the chota bhai in the America-Canada relationship, right? So now Canada indulges in performative outrage.
There you go.
So Canada is kadi ninda. ये देश सबकी कड़ी निंदा करता है. उसी तरीके से इनको अटेंशन मिलती है. आपको इनको बोलना पड़ेगा उनकी भाषा में. This is what my message to the Indian body politic is. Understand what they're doing. When you understand their essence is performative outrage and acronym generation, look at the number of acronyms Canadians come up with. It's a talent. Everything has an acronym in Canada. They come up with, there are more organizations than people in Canada. So it's a thing. It's a thing. You have to understand the culture. That's how they are. I mean, I'm not justifying it. I'm saying अभी ऐसा ही है, क्या करें?
Okay, fair enough. Thank you so much, Kushal, for joining me, talking to me. That has been very insightful. And I hope I can continue to speak to you through the day, because the Prime Minister is going to be holding those bilaterals, and particularly the one with Canada is going to be off. We are going to be watching it with our eyes tightly fixed to it.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a lot of fun, and thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Canada is not a serious country. Canada is beyond broken. It took all of 10 years for a party to completely dismantle, destroy, replace, remodel, and just the chaos. Elbows up. Elbows up. You couldn't have said it any better. There are still people that have no idea we had a Nazi in Parliament, and they gave him a standing ovation. Yeah. Previous episodes. I watched it live. I watch Parliament almost every day. I try not to miss any. It's a little bit harder now with this new channel that I've got going, but I still, through the day, sometime end up watching it. But I used to watch it live every day. Didn't matter. I was working, I had the headphones in. I've been doing this since I was a teenager. And when I saw that happen live, I threw everything. I had my glasses, I had a hat on. I was losing it. The second they introduced the guy, I knew who he was. Yet every single member in Parliament stood up and applauded and gave him a standing ovation. Not once, but twice. Canada's not a serious country. Those who don't know history have no right to lead us into the future. And when you have a party who is purposely, systematically trying to break us for what we are, trying to demoralize us, to denigrate us, to divide us, to flood us out, using everything they can, pushing the same type of totalitarianism used in dictatorship countries and fascist countries, and people still vote for that same party, that says a lot. And that's why you've got the Khalistans taking over all of these drugs, all of the trafficking, all of the extortion, the jewelry robberies, these are all the extremists. And this, I'm only talking about the Khalistans, let alone the Hezbollah, Hamas, Iranian psychotic extremists, which I'll be doing another show probably just on that part, especially with what's going on in Iran right now. I hope I hope I piece this all together for you guys. I hope I kind of given you enough. Like I said, I've got mountains and mountains of evidence. Documents suck. They're boring. Reading them off. I try to use as much video as I can just to kind of, it makes it easier for the viewer, enjoyable, palatable. And I don't do the get the ball. Like, I'm hoping the police have stumbled on and are now aware of the hierarchy in not only their branches of government, but in all branches of government. I'm hoping that there's going to be a few not appointed, because anybody appointed for some reason seems to be corrupted. And literally we've seen that. We've seen all that evidence, right down to the shooting that happened out east, how Lucky was purposely trying to find ways in order to legitimize the gun grab, to keep pushing this fascist ideology to remove our rights as a people. This is just, like I said, it goes on and on and on. This is only 1-2 part series just exposing the Khalistani part. And trust me, there's more. And like I said, I'm putting a warning out there. Be careful, because they've been raising hundreds upon hundreds of millions of dollars through all of these illicit kind of dealings, the drugs and the guns and the rest of it, the extortion. And the money is going towards funding their ideologies and buying weapons and setting up to do something nasty. And like I said, it's not over yet. I'm just putting out a warning. We're going to see something. It's probably going to be huge. It'll probably be a huge cover-up, just like Pierre Trudeau did back in his day, knowingly letting it happen, doing nothing. It's scary times, people. Once again, I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you have, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe. If you are, punch that notification bell so you don't miss any future episodes. I will just keep on digging, keep doing what I'm doing. Like I said, I got new software, so this is all, I'm getting all the bells and whistles here going, and hopefully I can start rolling this stuff off a lot better and cleaner. Make sure to check out my clothing line. I will be releasing more here this week. Like I said, I've got lots more to do working with that software. If you have any ideas, please share them with me. If you feel like donating, my email is canadiancitizenjournal@gmail.com. Until the next time, I'm Elias Guy. You've been watching the Canadian Citizen Journal. Stay informed.